What's up guys, my name is Danny or Daniel. I draw cards and turn them into 3D prints using HueForge, and I also do HueForge tutorials for all of you. Today we have something a little bit different, a little bit special. We have the Snapmaker U1 to talk about first impressions and what I think about it so far. Before we get into it, I wanna say that this is a demo machine. This is not the final product that is going to get shipped out. So some things may change with the final design and some issues will probably be resolved that we'll talk about today. And another thing, Snapmaker has not paid me a single dime. They sent me this unit to test out for HueForge. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So the first thing that I want to talk about with this printer is the price. I think that's something that a lot of people are surprised about, considering the only real competition for this printer on the market right now is the Prusa XL. For a fully spec'd out Prusa XL, you're looking at around $5,000 USD. That includes enclosure, that's all 5 tools, and that comes to you assembled. This Snapmaker U1 is $1,000 MSRP, or if you get in on the pre-order, this printer is at $679, which is an insane bargain. If you've watched any of my short form content, you'll know that I've been building a Voron stealth changer. That printer has 6 tools and is kind of pimped out, and I spent a little over $3 grand building it. If I was to go the cheapest route of building a stealth changer with a Sovol SVO8, I would still roughly be anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 for a tool changer. So at full price, this printer is already an insane bargain, and if you get in on the Kickstarter, even better. Now that price is only as good as the reliability of the printer, of course. Nobody wants to buy a paperweight. So let's talk about build quality and how these prints have been coming out. There is a lot of plastic with this enclosure. After I got done unboxing this printer and was starting to put it together, there were a lot of sounds made that really scared me. So the outer shell of it is plastic, but the shell is where they cut cost the most, and it's definitely apparent. As far as the docks and the tools are concerned, they definitely did a really good job on the parts that they used for this. They're using the same style carbon rods that you see on your P1Ss and your X1Cs. That makes the gantry lightweight and it works really well. The tools are using a bamboo style hot end as well. As far as first impressions go, this printer has printed reliably for me. The quality of each print has been very good. Now, as somebody that has built a tool changer, one of the biggest headaches that you will ever run into with that is dealing with the tool offset. Tool offsets have always been a really big pain when it comes to tool changers. And even on something like the Prusa XL, it's not exactly the quickest process. On the U1, it is such a quick and easy process. It will go through and ask you to clean each of your nozzles. And after you have cleaned each of your nozzles, it will go through and knock each of those tools up against the cup that is located in the back left corner of your bed. This process is automatic and quick, and Snapmaker did a really good job of making this process hands-off. Well, for the most part, it's hands-off. You still have to remove your bed plate in order for it to access that cup in the bed, but that is so simple in comparison to something like my Voron or something like the Prusa XL. So that is something that I've really loved about this Snapmaker U1. This printer features a 270 cubed print area. That size print area should be more than enough for most of your 3D prints. This printer also features flow calibration, and for somebody like me that does HueForge prints, flow calibration is a must. Having to manually calibrate flow for each of your filaments can be such a headache, especially when you're somebody like me that has 200 plus. I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty lazy about it and just get close enough. So the fact that this printer has an automatic flow calibration is absolutely amazing, especially for something like a tool changer where you could potentially be printing with something like TPU and PETG in the same print. Flow calibration makes printing with TPU so easy. If you have any experience printing with TPU, you know how much of a pain that can be as far as stringing and flow is concerned. The few TPU prints that I have printed on this so far have been great. With that flow calibration, you can see in the back of this printer that there is a poop bucket, and that is where all of that goes whenever it is calibrating your flow for you at the beginning of your prints. On this unit, it snaps in with a couple of plastic tabs. I'm not sure if they're going to redesign that or not. I know there were quite a few people in the beta that had some complaints about that, myself being one of them. It is kind of loose in the back of this printer, but that's definitely a nitpick item. Snapmaker has included automatic feeding to this printer, and it is so nice. On this demo machine, it feeds filament all the way to the tool, but you still have to push it in just a little bit for it to extrude. Either way, that is so nice in comparison to something like my stealth changer or the Prusa XL that has nothing at all as far as filament feeding is concerned. Now, up to this point, we've only talked about the pros, that being the automatic flow calibration, the automatic tool offsets, the automatic filament loading, the print quality, and the reliability of this printer. But let's talk about the cons, because there are definitely some cons to talk about. So like I said before, they used a lot of plastic in the outer shell of this printer. If I had to describe the outer shell of this printer, I would have to say that it feels like a more creaky version of a P1S. The external spool holders are also not the best. Keep in mind, this is a demo machine and has already been put through its paces, but still, it seems like just about every time that I try to pull a spool off of this, I'm also pulling the external spool holder off with it. And sometimes whenever you have to pull filament back manually, the automatic filament loader comes with it because of the way that it's slots into the side of the panel. So that's definitely a nuisance. It is something worth mentioning. Another thing that I ran into while I was testing this printer is whenever the filament actually gets fed to each tool head, it can get stuck on the coupler. Now for the taller people out there like myself who is 6'7", it is not easy to access this screen. The screen is flat on the face of the printer. There is no tilt function. So because of that, I have to set this printer up a little bit higher, or I have to bend down in order to see what's going on the screen. And that is less than ideal, especially for people that have print farm setups that may have multiples of these on different height shelves. So that definitely seemed like something that they overlooked whenever they were designing the printer. Now, as the intro suggests, I make tutorials for HueForge, and one tutorial that I made a while back was how you can use infinite amount of colors in an AMS when you were doing your HueForges. So when I got this U1, I wanted to see how well that worked. And for me, the first couple of times, it didn't work well. Similar to the Voron Stealth Changer, if Klipper doesn't detect the tool that it thinks that it should have on the shuttle, Klipper shuts down and you have to firmware restart. Whenever I was changing filament mid-print on these tools, I had a situation where I had to actually pull the PTFE off of the tool, and in doing so, I wiggled the tool off of the shuttle just a little bit, and that caused the printer to freak out, pause, and the only controls that I had access to were heating controls. Considering I still had access to heating controls, I think that this is a firmware issue, but I'm not 100% sure. I made Snapmaker aware of this during the beta testing, but after I realized how sensitive these tools are, I was able to run off this 6-color print no problem. So just something to keep in mind if you're planning on buying one of these for HueForge specifically, is that these tools are very finicky whenever they are on the shuttle, so if you have to swap filament mid-print, just be aware that you might have issues. This is a Klipper-based printer, and it is using fluid instead of mainsail. A couple more issues that I've had with this printer are, one, the calibration takes forever. If you were doing flow calibration at the beginning of a print as well as bed leveling at the beginning of every print, you're gonna have to tack on 30 to 40 minutes just to do that. Now, in my experience, I haven't had to run bed leveling every single print, but I do run flow calibration every print that I am at least doing HueForges on. For normal 3D models, I haven't had to run flow calibration every single time, but that is something to be aware of, that it takes a long time to do calibrations at the beginning of each print, and I hope they fix this in the future because 30 to 45 minutes is a long time for a start print calibration. Even something like my Stealth Changer that has to do a quad gantry level and levels the bed every time takes less than 20 minutes. And one thing I want to speculate on is that there is this 6-pin connector sitting in between all of the tools. When I was looking at the web interface, I could see tool 0 through tool 3 and all of the controls for it. And there's actually tool 4 through tool 7 as well. Now, there weren't any extruder controls for those tools, but on something like my Stealth Changer, you have tool 0 through tool 5, that's all 6 tools. So why would there need to be a tool 4 through tool 7? There's only 4 tools here, but with the Box Turtle specifically, it refers to each lane as its own tool, which makes me think that Snapmaker's also working on an AMS. This is all speculation. There's no confirmation or anything along those lines. All I'm saying is I've seen this 6-pin connector before.
You've seen this before? 11 times, as a matter of fact.
And it's very odd that there are 4 more tools in the web interface, and they're not directly controlling any other tool head. It's just weird to have this 6-pin connector here. Let me know what you think that 6-pin connector is for down in the comments. So that covers just about everything that I've experienced with this 3D printer. In conclusion, you can tell where the money is in this printer. It's all in the motion system as well as the tools. So my final thoughts on this 3D printer are that at the price, it's honestly a really good deal for what you're getting. Considering how good the print quality has been for me and all the automatic calibrations that this printer can do, this thing is a steal at $1,000, let alone if you get in on it in the Kickstarter. There's just a lot of technology here for such a low cost. Snapmaker definitely cut cost on this printer, but it was nothing that affects print quality. And for me, that's a deal breaker in any 3D printer that I'm looking at buying, is how good that printer is going to print. You can have the flashiest and shiniest case, but if the printer doesn't work, then why would I want it? And with the U1, they did quite the opposite. So tell me down below in the comments if you are going to back the Kickstarter. And if you found this video informative and helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you learned something.